What up, y'all? How is everybody doing tonight? It is the Young Laureates series. We are back. AKA What You Got, AKA Spitting Quarantino, AKA I wear my sunglasses at night inside because my eyes are as sensitive as my heart is, y'all. And we got another banger for you out here at the Young Laureates series. I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors, all of our broadcast partners that are making this happen: the Sacramento Bee, Crocker Art Museum, Soul Collective, ZFG, 916 Inc., and everybody else out here, the Creation District and our family over there. Also want to give a special little shout out to the Sacramento Bee Equity Lab and all of the work that they've been doing over there. We have an incredible program going on in Sacramento, y'all, and it is about bringing community voice to the newspaper. This isn't being done anywhere else. This is some innovative Sacramento stuff, y'all. So make sure you check that link, check out the Equity Lab, check out what they're doing. And if you want to submit a story, make sure you get your voice heard and included in the local media. You know what I mean? So shout out to the Sacramento Bee for all that they are doing. And, we're just going to get into it a little bit. So this is brought to you by the Sacramento Poetry Salon. A salon is not only where you get your hair done, y'all. A salon, this was the place where the thinkers, the philosophers, the poets, the artists, the scientists, the historians all gathered together and had these conversations that really pushed the culture forward and pushed thought forward. And that's what we are going to do here. It is National Poetry Month. In Sacramento, we celebrate National Guerrilla Poetry Month. If you don't know about that, you might want to go over to the ZFG Promotions YouTube or our channel on Facebook. You can see a bunch of videos from the past. We're doing it a little bit different this year because obviously it's a little different year. But so I was the interviewee last week, but I will be the interviewer from now on. And tonight we are so blessed to have one of the young voices that's really leading our community out here, y'all. Like, so we have two youth poet laureates in Sacramento right now, and we have one of them on the show tonight. She has rocked with the Kings. She has been covered all over local media if they are not sleeping. You know what I mean? Been working on her latest collection and helping steer Sacramento's newest, blackest support for creatives, the Black Artist Fund. Make sure you go follow them, Black Artist Fund. Shout out to Maya, Faith, Jessa, and the rest of the team. She is a veteran of the Sacramento Area Youth Speaks program, and they are responsible for raising some of the most important and best poets in Sacramento history. Right now, she is one of the two current Youth Poet Laureates, self-published a book called Receipts of Ungiven Gifts in 2019, and is currently a creative writing major at UC Riverside. Y'all, you're going to have to give it all the way up wherever you are for one half of the Youth Poet Laureates right now. Give it up for Cloudy. Hold on, y'all. I heard a rumor that the sound was not on that. So we're gonna rewind this a little bit and let me just try. We'll bring that back in a little later. We'll just bring her on herself. You know what I'm saying? Let's just do that right now. All right, we're gonna run this one more time. Y'all give it up for Cloudy. Yeah.
Hello.
How are you, love? We're just all over the place. I'm so excited right now. Can't help. I can't stop pushing buttons. All right. Yo, it's so good to have you. One half of the current youth poet laureates. How you doing today? Before we get into it too deep.
I'm doing all right. It was a hectic day. I'm winding down with some poetry, and you and all the Sacramento community is very exciting. This is what I love. It's what I'm here for. So this is like the best part of today. I'm very excited to get into this.
Yeah, so are we. So are we. We got half of Sacramento watching and tuned in right now. So I want to start like every superhero. Every good superhero story starts with the origin story, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you've probably been asked this about 500 times, and you'll probably be asked this another 5,000 times during the course of your career. But tell us about the name Cloudy. Where does this originate?
So Cloudy was first a name that it was a pseudonym because I was terrified of sharing my poetry and my parents finding it. I started sharing poetry very young. And I've always been told that I'm way more mature than my age, and I write about things and talk about things and do things that are outside of my age range. And because of that, I knew I was talking about topics and digging into things that my parents might not be okay with. And so I started my Instagram page, Signed Cloudy, and originally it was me just sharing poems in the caption, and it was like a picture of my hair. And I had this one person who was like, "Your hair looks like a cloud of curls," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. That's poetic." So I made it that thing. And after a while, it was, instead of being signed Cloudy, I was Cloudy. I became a different person when I was doing art because it was a completely different side of me. I'm a nerd in real life. I love school. I love reading. I love theater. I have always wanted to do community work and stuff. And in those realms, I'm Cheyenne. I'm still me. But when I do art, it's the deepest parts of me. It's the best parts of me. It's who I am on my best days. And I feel like that person deserved a different name. So she is Cloudy.
You know, and it's funny too, because I had made all of my questions and all of my descriptors so that I was not going to give out the government name. You know what I mean? Like I worked real hard to preserve that. So y'all got a scoop just now. So you know, you say you started writing young. When did you start writing, and kind of what is that process of finding poetry look like for you?
So I know the first time that I wrote consistently was third grade. And this is why. I'm a nerd, but I'm not good at math or science. I'm a history and literature nerd. I'm an arts nerd. And so in third grade, I wouldn't turn in homework for a month straight, ever. I always had missing homework. And my teacher said, "You're going to be in lunch detention every day until you turn your work in for 3 weeks straight." And I just didn't for all of third grade. So I got a journal and I would sit in lunch detention and I would write, and I loved it. It was actually my favorite part of the day. And that's when I knew that I loved writing. It didn't click inside of my third grade head that I loved poetry and I wanted to be an artist at that time. I just knew that I loved coming down to sit and like write stories. So that happened. And then, of course, I went to fourth grade and forgot all about my journal because I'm a kid and whatnot. And I reached sixth grade and I had a best friend who was a little destructive. She had a lot of emotional issues. And, you know, at that age, like, what do we really have to be emotional about? But they were real for her. And as it progressed, she got more sad and she started self-harming. And I was in a sisterhood group at the time that did talent shows. And I wanted to write a poem because that was something that had just been nagging at me about it. So I wrote about it. I got into the talent show with it. I performed it and memorized it. I got on stage and I freaked every single parent out, every single one at that show. No one clapped. I think it was the best thing that could have happened because after that, I was never afraid to get back up on a stage again. It couldn't be worse than somebody listening to this real story and not appreciating it, you know, and not just one in a room full of people. So after that, I didn't take it like as like, oh my gosh, nobody liked it. I took it as, well, why not keep trying? So after that, I I wrote, but I didn't perform it because I was still a little bit scared to perform in front of people. I didn't know what people were going to want. And then when I hit 7th grade, I was doing a poetry unit with my teacher, and he did a whole bunch of like old timey people poems, of course. And there was one out of all of them inside of a TED Talk of Sarah Kay doing a poem, "If I Should Have a Daughter." And I was like, this is beautiful. This is amazing. What is this? I just thought that I was performing a poem once on a stage, and that was cool. And it was like a poetry reading, but I didn't know spoken word was a thing. Right. And it was life-changing, literally. So that night I went and I looked up Sarah Kay's poem, and then I looked up Sarah Kay, and of course I got to Phil Kay, and I got to their associates, and all of these amazing poems that were funny and serious and sad and honest. And I watched maybe like 100 spoken word poems that night. And then I knew that that was what I wanted to do. So after that, it just kind of became this thing where I was like doing poetry, and I was trying to find spaces to perform it. And the place that I found was Speak Out Sac. It was the first open mic I ever performed at with Grace.
Shout out Grace. Yeah.
Grace, she invited me out. She was like, come out here, do your poetry. And I shook so hard, I thought my whole body was gonna buckle on that stage. But everyone cheered and like talked to me afterwards and told me what they thought was good, told me what they thought could be better, asked about where I'd been and all these things, and I was in love with it. So I kept going back. And yeah, after that, I just kind of took off doing poetry. I went to like these art programs for it. I became Sacramento Youth Poet Laureate. I started writing a book. I performed at open mics all the time, like at Luna's and Speak Out Sac, and the ones at my school, and these little community ones that would pop up every now and then at Mahogany. So all these amazing places and these amazing people who just came together and like were like, you're young and you're great and you need to know you're great, and lifted me up on that pedestal and gave me the confidence to be who I wanted to be.
And while we're talking about like those folks who you kind of meet along the way, Sacramento is extremely blessed by a program that comes into the schools and has been in here as long as I've been in Sacramento, doing incredible work and really like raised some of the most powerful poets that I've ever seen come out of the city. And that's Sacramento Area Youth Speaks, which I wish that there would have been says when I was growing up, right? Like I wish I would have had those mentors who really like kind of walk you through, what spoken word is, what poetry is, and the power of it, and kind of providing some of those examples and some of that mentorship. When did you get involved with Says, and kind of what does that do for your writing at that point? Because you're already writing. You start writing in like 7th grade, right? Like writing poetry, like pretty heavy.
With purpose. So it started maybe around freshman year. I had heard that there was a slam team and I had wanted to get involved, but I didn't know how. And I wanted to, and then I lost my brother. So I kind of like stopped writing for a minute and had this like halt. Then I hit junior year and I'd heard about it again. And in particular, a classmate of mine, Keisha, was a part of Says. And Keisha was like, she is this amazing, like, advocate for people of color, advocate for women, advocate for just helping out the community. Amazing. I look up to her to this day, and she's only a year older than me, but she's amazing. So she told me that she was in Says. She told me to follow the Instagram. I followed it, and then I had saw that there was an event for the SAC Youth Poet Laureate. And that year, Kaya was crowned, and I went to see their inauguration. And I was like, I've seen them at Shine before, and I thought they were amazing, and I want to be like them. And so I went to the event. I didn't know anyone. I just went up to Mama P afterwards and was like, hey, I kind of want to be involved. I don't know what to do. And Mama P was like, hit me up and we will get you started in the program. So after that, I talked to Mama P a few times. I saw her at the protest that we led at Sac High. I connected with her a few times. And then when I applied to be Youth Poet Laureate, that's when I really connected with Says, because I had all these external network connections that I had built from going to open mics. I didn't ever have the time to go from Oak Park to UC Davis. And so that was when I started to network with says and get connected. And I realized that it was so much more than just like doing poetry with kids. It was a whole program that teaches you activism, uplifting, and how to be yourself, and and it supports you through school and all these other things. It's amazing. And I wish that I would have gotten more involved sooner. So yeah.
So, if y'all are looking, especially young people, or you've got some young people interested in writing, make sure you find Sacramento Area Youth Speaks. So tell us about becoming Youth Poet Laureate. Like, what is this process like going through it? And then like, what does it mean to you?
It was completely nerve-wracking. I had been the only kid I'd known about in the poetry scene for so long. I was 16 and I was hanging out with 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds doing these cafes. And I was terrified of I was like, what if I'm not actually as good as I am and I'm the only person that they know? And it was this process of being terrified and not knowing how my art was going to be received next to all these other talented people. And so I remember talking to my friend one day and I was like, I really want this. I've never wanted anything more. And I don't know how to guarantee that I'm going to get it. And she was like, you're fine. We're going to go to the announcement place with you. And we're going to go get through this together. If you get it, amazing. If you don't, we're still here for you. It was like this process of me acting as if I was trying to get into Yale or something, like this super high stakes thing for me. And then I remember Mom P was like, oh, there's a tie. And it was me and Alex. And I absolutely love Alex. I am so happy that I didn't get it alone and that Alex was my partner of all people. She kind of was like the person who's very organized and like, she's like, this is how we do these things step by step. And I'm like, let's just go for it. And she's like, but you have to have a plan to get there. And we workshop poems together and we've written poems together. And there's this bond of we just FaceTime each other and talk about what's going on, especially with, what's been going, like the pandemic. There is this time when there is this anti-Blackness going on deeply and very ugly. And it was a traumatic time to be a poet laureate because everyone wanted me to do art about it. And I was like, I don't want to keep reliving this trauma. Right. And now we're on the flip side of that. And it's my turn to be that support for her because she's an Asian woman and she's going through the same thing. And I know that there's people who are going to be asking her about this, but it's not always her responsibility or my responsibility to do that emotional labor for people. So I is very excited that we got it together. It's been an amazing experience. I have gotten a lot of opportunities. I've connected with a lot of organizations and I started getting paid to do it, like actual money. And it's become a way that I'm paying for college. So this has been the most amazing experience ever. I'm very sad for it coming to an end, but I'm very thankful for it.
I just mean the next thing is coming to a start. You know what I'm saying? Like for both of y'all, like it's been one of the highlights of my laureateship to have y'all as youth poet laureates and be able to work with y'all and we didn't get to do as much as I think normally would have, but we did get to rock a couple of Zoom rooms. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's. I'm gonna miss you guys. Gonna miss you guys.
We're connected. You miss us. We're still here.
Absolutely. And I mean, while we're talking about it, we spend a lot of time. You mentioned Mama P. I spent a lot of time last week talking about Patrice Hill. I just want to make sure that our viewers connect those two dots. That Mama P is Patrice Hill, and just the amazing, incredible work that Patrice has been doing. And I was lightweight jealous because me and Patrice were up for Poet Laureate at the same time. And I would have really liked if they would have followed what y'all did so that I could have my little co-Poet Laureate buddy. But, so, all right, we are 20 minutes into this. And because the sound didn't work on that video, because I was rushing, we haven't even had one poem yet. Can we get a poem from you, Cloudy?
Oh, yes. So since we're talking about origin stories, I'm going to start off with Self-Portrait as a Black Bean. I'm Black and Mexican, and I'm Creole and Mexican, and it's been a really weird combination of cultures that I've always had to navigate delicately. So this is about.
Oh,
My grandmother wants me to date a Mexican boy. Says we need less color in the family. She calls me Black Bean. I don't look like my grandmother. My papa wants me to learn about his southern slang. It would be any boy trying to claim me as a trophy. He calls me yellow. I don't look like my papa. Praying to two gods. They are both Christian. Why does it matter which one I choose or if I choose? I have a family full of puzzle pieces, two different jigsaws, and I can't complete either. One too bright and the other bright enough. I try and I try and I try, but I can't fit. I'm too black or too bean. My grandmother cooks me menudo. And she tells me stories of mi abuela, and my papa teaches me how to cook gumbo and tells me stories of Louisiana and the Zydeco, and I love them both. Beans always belonged in soup, but I don't like jalapenos or hot sauce. I don't have black rhythm. I don't have bean tongue. I'm so sorry. So very sorry to disappoint everyone. So sorry that I probably said jalapenos wrong. And I probably spelled Zydeco wrong too. And I don't speak Spanish. And I don't want to live by street code. So very sorry that I am not black or being enough for either of you. But I think I'm fine with being both. I was never good at picking sides. And I've always been a little indecisive. So that part of that poem is about me struggling with the difference in between these sides and being okay with them not being united. And this little synopsis of another one is the flip side of that. I prayed for happy endings and Christmas lights, for presents that weren't wrapped in family to be whole again. I prayed for crowded living rooms and secrets. I prayed for you and I. Actually, I prayed for us one last time to see if you or God would respond. Right.
hey. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So I want to get into, the real meat and potatoes of this, as it would, unless you're vegan, then it's the asparagus and the potatoes. Just the general the state of poetry in Sacramento, and one of the things that I had the honor of doing, early on when I won, was sitting down with both you and Alex and kind of seeing like just where y'all thought it was, what your experience had been as young people, as young poets of color, and so I know a little bit about what it was a year ago when we sat down and had that conversation. So I'm very interested to hear if it's changed at all, how it's changed. I know there's also been the biggest way that it's changed is that we all virtual right now. But yeah, tell us about the state of poetry in Sacramento, just kind of in general, and then maybe a little bit about the state of poetry for Sacramento's young poets.
Yes. So there is a huge poetry scene out here, which I had no idea about until I popped into Luna's. And it was amazing to see all these different people of different races and different ages and of different like genders and sexualities just coming together and loving on one another, of respecting the space, of doing poetry, of protecting each other. Specifically Sharon, Ike, and Jenny and all of the other hosts that Luna's
Forgive them away. Give them that
time. They were very much like, you have a great voice and you're going to do this, and then I'm going to make sure people know about you. I'm going to support you through this. And it was like this, whoa, why me? Like, why is everyone so nice and what's going on? And I realized that was just the culture here inside the Sac poetry scene. And I loved it. I was absolutely amazed with it and made me go back every week. And then it opened me up to the other open mics and the other spaces that those were happening. It opened me up to slam competitions and starting to be paid for my work. And Ike made me do my first ever slam, and I ended up winning that slam. So that was amazing. And just learning little things like don't introduce your poems for too long and stand up straight, and you should have movements when you do it to express more, and all these little tips and things that I wouldn't have learned anywhere else. Because these were real people who understood poetry at a deeper level, who had been doing it for so long. and so authentically. So that was my initial like introduction to it. And I was very interested and like grasped right away. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like so much of my life just disappeared because I was at these open mics and in these art events and these community events every week at like almost like 5 days out of the week. It was like something that I looked forward to. It's what I wanted to do. It's what I put in the extra time for and lost sleep over. And then the pandemic hit and it was like no more space for poetry, and it's only virtual, and being able to connect on the internet is great. It's amazing. It's one of the wonders of technology, but it's not the same as the aura of being in a room and someone says that line and it's like a big uproar. It's this huge moment, or someone says something, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I felt that. I'm sorry for you. Like, let's all connect and have a kumbaya moment after this, and the support you get and the hugs and the handshakes. And seeing someone sweat on stage because they're really into it, like all these things that are intimate and you can't get over the internet. And I miss that for sure. Mm-hmm. But I will say during this time, as a student who like is going into college, and I'm not low income, like to the point where I can't pay for things and I can't survive. I'm very privileged in that way. I have parents who have worked very hard for me. But I am also not privileged enough that I can pay for college. So there was this amazing thing that happened where people started to want to pay me to actually speak, and not just like $50 or tips at the open mic. It was like real money. And I was like, this is first off crazy. What is happening? And then second, I was like, wow, I can go to school now comfortably. And this is amazing. And I get to stay in my community and still stay at my job and connect with these people, be a part of the Black Artist Fund, which we're going to get into later. And all those amazing things that I think brought the virtual community to a different level, because people were then thinking, how do we bring art into these spaces and uplift voices with everything that's going on? And poetry was that answer. I think that a part of that was Brandon Leak. He won America's Got Talent, first poet to ever go on, and won the $1 million and won the show in Vegas. And that was unheard of. I mean, Brandon Leak used to be at Luna's. And
probably then, still will be.
Yes. And then all of a sudden he was on this national platform. And I just remember like defending him to all these people who were like, music is the only real art that should be winning. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, it is so much harder to get up there and bare your soul and do the choreography and remember these things and be vulnerable in front of these people. And then you have to get their feedback of whether they thought it was good enough. That's so much harder to do than singing a song. Everyone can sing if they work hard enough. Not everyone can do poetry the way that real poets do it.
You can hide behind music, you know what I mean? You can hide a little bit, like you're kind of bare naked out there as far as like doing the poetry. And you know what I really realized was that in the moment, like in America's moment, he didn't just win a season of America's Got Talent. He won the America's Got Talent that happened in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of social justice uprisings, when America was like just lost and a hot mess and a wreck, like didn't know what it was going to do in the morning or if it was going to make it. It turned to a poet. And then even to go further than that, we had these 4 dark years of a presidency that was more like a regime and just like a terrorist running our country. And then at the end of the tunnel, there was another white man in office, but also a Black woman, and then a Black woman poet performing at an inauguration who was in the same program I'm in. And seeing that was just like, wow, so our voices do matter. We are appreciated. We can be on these national stages. Poetry is an art that's being loved on and supported now. And where did all this come from? It was like this thing that I could not fathom. And I've been absolutely ecstatic to be a part of it and to be witnessing this time. But I wonder why it wasn't there before. Why the appreciation for all of this emotional labor wasn't there before, for these stories, for the truth why wasn't it there? And that's something that I do come back to sometimes, but I do try to focus on the positive part of that. It's out there now and people are appreciating it and loving on it and supporting it, and how I can be a part of that movement. So yeah. So, I mean, while we're talking about it, like, what grade, let's say, would you give Sacramento's poetry community, and even, I mean, you're involved in the Black Artist Fund, so I'll make it an even bigger umbrella of the arts, right? What grade would you give Sacramento's arts on cultural equity? And I mean across all gaps, you know what I mean, like whether that's like age, like generational gaps, whether that's like cultural differences, academic versus non-traditional. What do you think? What
I
grade are we ranking with today?
I would give them a C plus. Um, I think that Sacramento does a great job of uplifting art and putting art everywhere and trying to put it into spaces. But the people who make the decisions about where art funding goes and the people who are talking about these conversations about around youth and community and trying to utilize art to mobilize things are white people who don't understand what's going on. And you can't have people who aren't in the community, who aren't doing grassroots work, who aren't out there and dealing with the struggle that we're dealing with, make decisions for us. It just doesn't work. They don't understand it. They don't get it. And they can't. And when you have people on the board that are all white or even all women or all men, they don't understand. There's not an intersectional way to discuss these problems and these issues and what's actually needed. There needs to be youth on boards. There needs to be Black women on boards. There needs to be non-binary people on boards. There needs to be trans people on boards. There needs to be men and women and all ethnicities. There needs to definitely be Indigenous people on boards making decisions on their land. And I think the problem is they're like, oh, we're trying to do something good, but just because you're trying doesn't mean it's actually working.
Impact versus intention.
Exactly. And so I know that in this time, I am here to support Asian people. I'm here to support the AAPI community. It is not my place to take those stories. I am here to uplift the voices and give space to the voices and push out resources. But it's not my time to ask them for their stories and their emotional labor and for them to sit on stages and tell me how this trauma has affected them. It's my turn to go read articles and learn about it and then ask myself what I can do to not perpetuate that. And when you don't educate yourself, and even when you do educate yourself, you still have to know that your experience is not the experience of that person. It's not what they're going through. You will never understand it because you're not them. And in order to impact change, you need those people at the table. You need those people making the decisions, those people getting the funding, those people in schools, those people on boards, those people being CEOs. That's what needs to happen. And I think that Sacramento has a hard time understanding that.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I feel like we're getting better at it in the years that I've been here, but you're absolutely right, and it's funny because when I talked to Alex last, one of the things that Alex said was that people love to have youth poets come in and start the meeting, but don't want to actually give them a seat at the table for the meeting. Right, like there's a lot of like, will you come in, can we have a young artist come in and bless us with something and then leave the conversation so that we can do what we're going to do here. And I think you're absolutely right, and I think just your generation has been really pushing for this inclusivity that I think even my generation was like, we're too young, we don't belong there, where like y'all were just like, yo, we supposed to be here. So yeah, exactly. So how could we be creating an even better tomorrow for the young poets in this city? How do we go from that C plus to that A?
It starts with having mentors that get it. I know that having a Black woman be someone who was sitting there supporting me was one of the best things ever. It showed me that it was possible. It showed me that I'm going through the same thing she is going through. I mean, a few weeks ago, I hit up Mama P and I was like, I'm sorry I haven't been in contact. I've just been working full time and doing school full time and I'm very overwhelmed. And she was like, you are okay. I went through the same thing. And just having that, like being a person of color, being first gen, trying to get through school, and having to support yourself through it and how hard that can be. Having that shared experience is something that can't be replaced with anything else. Someone who gets it. And so I know that when I first started, Grace was a queer woman. That was amazing for me. Mama P is a woman of color. That was amazing for me. And just having these people who related to me in different realms. And it's not just one person or two people. And it's not to say that white people are definitely can't be a part of this conversation and can't be helpful because you're amazing and you're white. So all of these things, I just think that it does have to be more inclusive. It has to be a broader spectrum of people who are sitting down with youth and telling them that they matter and that they're important and that they can do what they want to do. I mean, the school I went to, there were no arts programs by the time I got there. I had to go out and find all these arts resources on my own. And the only reason I was motivated to do it so much is because I found what I wanted to do at a very young age. I got lucky, but there's so many kids who could fall in love with dance or theater or hip hop and being an artistic being, but they don't have the resources and they don't have the support and they don't have the examples for that. So that is something that I'm also a huge advocate for is arts in school because it needs to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we gonna make sure that we're broadcasting to half of the city right now, so they just heard you say all of that, and then I'm gonna cut just that clip of what you just said up and make sure that we just email that out to everybody because that was 24 karat. You see Georgina tuning in and say, "Preach, poet, wise advice here," and that's the laureate from Lake County who will be on this show eventually. But yeah, just keep doing what you're doing and know that you got all of the support. And with that, my alarm is going off and it's saying it is time for another poem from Cloudy.
Righty. This one deals with infidelity. I wrote most of Receipts of Ungiven Gifts is dealing with this journey of me being in a very horrible relationship and trying to find my way out of it. As a young person and not knowing what self-love and all that is. So this one in particular is really fun because it's an alternate perspective on how things usually play out. So an ode to my one night stands lover. Dear stranger, I found it only fitting that I share something intimate with you. I've had sex with people I had no business sleeping with. I've wrapped myself in another woman's hard work and indulge in another man's blessing, and I take them like free samples at a grocery store. Bump into them as if at a party with too many people and too little light. Some call me reckless, inconsiderate, but remember, you have been in the equation longer than I have. We have never been in direct contact. There might have been traces of you, but I am not playing detective. You are the coefficient, a number that doesn't change, and I am a variable. Plug me or another girl in, and that determines the product. See, I can be replaced. Today, I feel replaceable like there is and has never been any significance to my existence. It's a cold morning, but my cheeks are on fire, and the only thing keeping the smoke at bay are my eyelids. My whole body feels heavy and out of place, like God trying to tell me to shrink, and I guess I agree. Because I'm sitting in a corner curled up and trying to be invisible, and I think it's been like this most of my life. As a kid, I curled up under covers, then I found myself in dim-lit coffee shops and behind the rest of the crowd, hoping to never be seen and only heard when absolutely necessary. I think I have a bad habit of giving my body as a souvenir to the people who find me. The people who see me when I least expect it and tell me I might be hard to find. But they do see me, just for them to disappear the next morning. And I guess I'm the maker of my mess. I'm a horribly crafted person who's being kept together by tape and glue, but I'm carrying burdens made of boulders, and I can only blame myself. So I ask questions like, what if this universe isn't real? And what if this never happened? And what if you aren't hurt? Because I can apologize for the thoughtless night I spent with your future. Or I can explain why this is not my story. It is yours. What we made was regrettable. But it is in the past. It only lives on in those little infinities no one bothers to look at anymore. I'm hoping this isn't too confusing for you. Signed, I'm not sorry, but my deepest condolences. I hope this wasn't too much honesty for you to handle. Goodbye, stranger. So that was part one.
The people going crazy.
And then the little synopsis at the end that I did, like with the last one, is me not speaking to the lover, but the person, the one night stand. A vacation from your girlfriend's body. To you, I am just perishable anatomy, but I am someone else's home. Signed, we are not in love, just lonely. And that is that one.
Wow. Deep, deep. So you perform clearly with the spoken word. You smash that. You've also written a book. So do you consider yourself a stage poet or a page poet?
You know, I get this question all the time, and I don't have an exact answer yet. I think I'm both. I started out as definitely a stage poet. I wanted to perform. I wanted to be theatric and loud and visible. But when it came to these smaller and more intimate poems, I felt like they just belonged on the page, or even some poems, just the form of them needed to be seen rather than heard, to be understood. Like they were chaotic or all over the place. And this is my thinking instead of me trying to convey that with different tones. And there's only so many variations of tones you can do on a stage, and all of these things. And when I was writing these poems, I realized that not all of them were meant to be said out loud. Some of them were just meant to be seen, felt, and digested. So I definitely started off as a stage poet, and I then got very into being a page poet. But I am definitely both. There's a space for each of them.
Mm. Yeah, I feel the same, and I feel like it's just different moods, right?
Yes.
Like sometimes I need to yell this poem off the top of a roof, and other times I need to just like bury it in this book and like a little landmine that you're gonna come across sometime. Uh, so what? Let's talk a little bit about your practice, right? Because I know a lot of people get really excited around this time. They find out it's Poetry Month, and I'm gonna start writing poems. I've got these poems inside me, and I'm gonna start putting them down. So, what is your writing practice? How often do you write? What makes the good poems come out versus just the you know I'm not saying you write bad poems, but every one of us, every once in a while, has
Yes.
one of those squeak out. So what do you do to get yourself aligned into your highest form of writing?
So first, I write a line of poetry every day, and this is where the pandemic really stunted me. I always write a line of poetry from something I see or experience that day, and maybe it can be used as a metaphor, or the
Mm.
situation will be important later, or this person that I met that had this deep conversation, I will see them inside of a random boardroom or something, and it'll come full circle. But during the pandemic, I was stuck in my room all day. And I mean, my room is pretty, but it's the same thing over and over again. I created this space. I know what's in here. There's nothing else to write about because this was just supposed to house me. And then I go out into the world and experience it. And I write about those experiences for people to have with me. And so that had been my process for a very long time. And then when the pandemic hit, I was interning at Crocker, and they were like, "Hey, Cloudy, you're artistic and you do writing, so maybe you can do writing prompts for everybody every day." And the first thought when they asked me was, "I can't even write right now myself." And having that extra push to go out and do research and discover life around my neighborhood, which I hadn't really explored before, really helped me get back into the groove of writing a line a day, finding the beauty in the littler things and not these crazy experiences when I was walking through downtown or on the bus. Having to sit still and experience my surroundings in a different way really, really helped. So that was my writing process then. And now I'm back to a line a day because I work in a gift shop in downtown. So I see people and crazy things all the time. And after that, when something speaks to me, or if I have an assignment for class, or I really want to write a poem, I will go through all of my lines and I will try and use them for poems.
I love it.
Different ones. So yes, that's the process. I will say that it doesn't always work. Um, I definitely have those writer block days, or those days when I wake up at 3 a.m. and all of a sudden there's a poem pouring out of me. So it's like this gift and a curse thing. Sometimes I can write and I can go back and edit and I can do it slowly, but most of the time my writing pours out onto the page and then I have to go back and refine it.
I just love I love this idea of writing one line a day. Like I try to get my writing. You know, I used to be more just I have to write for a half an hour to an hour a day. I have to sit and stare at this computer screen and figure it out. And you know, part of the pandemic, I went through the same thing you did, where it was like, yo, I can't write right now. Like I'm trying to keep my mental health cool. Like
Yeah.
I can't. I don't have anything to offer y'all other than like my poem is like, go sit in the sunshine and find a dog to pet. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I love this idea of like one line a day where there's not like so much pressure, but it's also like a cognitive like reminder throughout the day to be like, yo, put that down. That thing that you saw beauty in, that flashing moment, that little glimpse of beauty that you saw, like write it down and then to be able to come back to it later. I was talking to Alex a while ago about I have a note in my phone that's just poem ideas, and it's just ran every time like those random things happen. And you're like, yo, someday I'm gonna write a poem about this. Like, and shout out to Leonard Germanara. He actually put me on this exercise that's called I Remember. And he was talking about you write down like 50 things that you remember. Whether it's like, I remember going to the hospital when I was 13 years old, or I remember the day I won this football game, but just these things that you remember, and then going back to those later and being like, yo, I could write about this, I could write about that. So kind of like fighting off, it's that same idea of like storing up creativity to fight off writer's block on the bad days.
Yes.
Right. Like that's a beautiful way. I think I just learned how I'm going to write my new book.
And also, I mean, it is okay to have writer's block. It's okay for sometimes for the poem not to jump out at you or the art to jump out at you. It's okay to sit and wallow in that and think about why, and be okay with yourself taking a break from it and then going back. I gave myself a lot of shit at the beginning of quarantine for it. I was like, I used to be able to write all the time. Why can't I push something out right now? But then I realized that art isn't about just pushing out content, especially if it's not meaningful. And that's why I think I post a lot less on my page now. I would rather have a collection of work that's meaningful and tells a story and relays a message than pushing out surface level work that I don't really connect to. And if I don't connect to it, how can I expect my audience to connect to it? So that is my new philosophy for writing. And it's been working out.
Yo, and that's something that, you know, again, like through the pandemic really hit me, and it hit me in all aspects of my life, not just the poetry, but it definitely applies to the poetry too. You know, we'll be talking about alignment over hustle. Like you can hustle all day. Like you have this assignment you got to do, right? You got to write this paper, and you can stare at a computer and bang your head against the desk all day long. But sometimes if you go take that walk and take that breather, talk to your family, talk to the homies, whatever you need to do to get yourself in like a better alignment, right? Then that's when those, like, I tell people all the time, like, I'm not procrastinating, I'm aligning, right? Like, so if y'all want me to write this poem for you, the best poems, like you were talking about, just pour out of you. But I got to be in the right place. There's a lot of work that goes into being in the place where it just pours out of you. You know what I mean? So I think that's beautiful. Like, and just that idea, you hit the nail on the head. You got to give yourself some grace when the writer's block hits. Like, it be like that sometimes. This is funny. This is my father chiming in. Says some days my son tells me I have to write. That's right. You do.
I think that everyone should use writing as an outlet. I mean, it's the purest way to get what you're filling out onto a page, and you don't have to share. You don't have to give it out to anyone. It's for you. And it's healthy. It's a much healthier way to deal with emotions and letting it bottle up and simmer below the surface. Pouring that out can do a lot of mental well-being for yourself. And I love that. That's why I fell in love with poetry. I get to tell my story, and people get to listen and want to listen, which is, you know, unheard of for most people. So I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the journaling, whether you do it in poetic form, whether you just like write out the day, you know what I mean? Especially when things are heavy on you. I know a lot of us going through it right now in one way or another, or another, or another. So yeah, I think that just more sage advice from Cloudy, y'all. You know what I mean? Like, if you need a life coach, Cloudy is available. Uh, so let's get into another poem. I think it's about time.
Righty. Well, speaking about lines that I wrote down and then came back to, and a poem that poured out of me after so long, we're gonna get into and who will take a second look before my demise.
Let's go.
I care about everything, and I hate it. I often think about the homeless man who I walked past almost a year ago and how he was scrutinizing his wife on a payphone that was no longer in service because I think it'd make a nice poem. I wonder if the first girl that ever broke my heart is in love, and how I get a different answer every time I go to my grandmother's house in Stockton. You know, I used to kiss her in the back of my uncle's pickup truck, and now I only see her by accident in my hometown. I think about existential crises and then make myself have an existential crisis. I ponder if my parents deem me good enough for praise, and how I seem to be the only child of theirs who cares about anything. I want to be carefree, but I care too much about what carefree looks like. I care about people, so I wear a mask and wash my hands and post threads about self-love on Instagram and tweet my liberal left thoughts in Twitter. And I can't sing the same song for myself because I'm too caught up in caring about what everyone else thinks of me. Queer, nappy-headed feminist, mixed breed, being and black and girl, and not anything anyone in this world could love. And I wonder if I'll be an old homeless woman scrutinizing my significant other through a payphone with no service. Or if all the people I love that broke my heart will know I am not in love unless they run into me by accident in their hometowns. Or if I will be nothing more than a body that lived and died and did nothing but post positive threads about self-love on Instagram and tweeted my liberal left thoughts and wore a mask during the pandemic. I care about how little significance a person can have on this world, no matter how much they care about it. Yeah.
Yo, you can hear it. Like, if you listen really closely, you can hear the snaps from all around the city.
Yes. I would also like to point out that is an excerpt from this collection I'm working on called Fruits of Isolation. You can catch glimpses of it inside of the Sac B. And yeah, I'm very excited. I'm working on how this whole pandemic has really just messed with my juju and my routines and how I saw the world, and how I'm going back to all these things that I hadn't thought about before, that I was forced to sit down and think about and experience in a different way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the perfect segue to our next conversation topics, which are like kind of the future and what you're working on now. So one of the things that during the pandemic and during the last year that I saw, and I was so excited, because first off, shout out to Maya and Jessa and the whole team over there. Faith is one of my favorite superheroes in the entirety of Sacramento. And then I saw that our young life, Cloudy, was involved with the Black Artist Fund as well, which was really dope. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Black Artist Fund for folks that don't know, and the work that you've been doing with them?
Absolutely. So I interned at the Crocker with the Block by Block Street team. And that's how me and Faith connected via the art community. I had known her a little bit before via my school. And she was this fearless leader who advocated for us and treated us with respect and wanted to know our voices and let us plan events and all of these things. And I was definitely like the person who walked into a meeting and I was like, "What's up, everybody? Let's get stuff done." Super excited. And I always wanted to be a part of the conversation. I would ride jump bikes all over the city to get to our community events and to open mics and vice versa. And it was so much fun being a part of that team, and I really invested in it. I really loved it. So when Faith decided to start the Black Artist Fund, and she was thinking about how me and her would have conversations that youth voice was always prioritized but never actually uplifted in there, she reached out to me and she was like, "Do you want to be a part of this?" And I was like, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was doing what I want to do with my life. Basically, I've already had a head start now. I get to help low income and marginalized communities and people who are overlooked and pushed aside get the resources they need to start doing what they want to do, what they're passionate about, not what they have to do to make ends meet, you know? And in a podcast that Faith was just featured on, she was talking about how there shouldn't have to be this starving artist like narrative all the time and how detrimental that is to the art community. And absolutely, that's why I wanted to do it, because the resources and the opportunities and the examples aren't there. I mean, even in school, when we talk about people who did art, they were philosophers from thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago who had parents who gave them trust funds to live off of for the rest of their lives. They weren't people who made a living from these things, and they didn't get famous until after they died, so their work didn't really matter in their lifetime. And we're just told that this is impossible. It's not, and it's not something that's concrete. It's not something you should invest in, but it is. It's if it's what you love and it's what you think can cause change in your community and can help people and mobilize people to do better and feel better and love themselves, it's absolutely what you should do. So with the Black Artist Fund, it's a board full of Black women nurturing their community. They are giving money back. They are giving out resources. They're making network connections. They're uplifting artists inside of places like the Golden One Center and on our page. And these artists who didn't know that there was a Black artist community before, they now know. And they now get to be a part of that and function in it and know they have someone to lean on. I've seen artists who I had at the open mics who are like older than me in college and stuff, and they didn't know that they had all these people they could lean on and reach out to. They didn't know there were people like Paul Willis out here really doing art and living from it and being a pillar in our community. So
he's all right.
Yeah. it was the opportunity of a lifetime to be on the board, and to be a founding board member and to be someone who has input and influence inside of the realm of who gets money and who gets to do their art. And I love it. I think that it's an amazing experience with all the bumps that we've had and figuring out and seeing how it kind of imploded. Like we thought that the Black Artist Fund was going to be a GoFundMe account. We raised maybe 10,000, give it out once, and then voila, we did what we had to do. And it just became this thing that snowballed with all the support. And it was amazing to see. It was surprising. It was amazing. It was breathtaking. It restored hope. And now it's an organization. I mean, we're having brand meetings, and we're talking about how we can specify the categories and how to raise more money for more people. And it's not people who are doing this because they're getting paid. It's not people who are doing this because they benefit from it. They're doing it because they love the community. It's all love. And I think that's the best part, because when you volunteer that much of your life to something, it means you're invested. And when you're invested for a reason, you walk with purpose and you provide with purpose. And I don't see a better metaphor for that than like Black moms and Black women supporting the community, nurturing Black artists. It's the best thing ever. I am completely in love with the Black Artist Fund, and I will be there until I cannot be there anymore.
It's been amazing to watch and to just see, you know, like in the middle of these uprisings, it just kind of emerges. You know, we've been having these conversations. I've been talking to Maya and Faith about the lack of equity in the arts for years now. And then to see the way that folks just like, okay, if we're tipping statues into the river, like it's time to find support for the Black artists and the Black creatives in this community. And to see it, like you said, it just kind of exploded into this thing. And I think that just is really telling of like how important that it is. As a young Black creative, why is the Black Artist Fund so important?
Because the Black Artist Fund is telling you that it's possible. It's telling you that you don't have to be a big shot artist to get money. You don't have to be a big shot artist for somebody to believe in you. You don't have to be proper and professional. And what they mean by that is more whitewashed than anything. To get funds and to be supported. You have people in your corner who know what you've been through, who are there to support you as you are, who are meeting you where you are. And that's why our grant categories are so different. We have from up to $5,000 to $100 grants, you know? And so it's to help the young ones. It's to help the people who are doing it big, but still need funds to do it big. It's for people who are trying to get supplies so that they can do it bigger or can start on projects. And I know that as a young person, when I was publishing my book, there was no Black Artist Fund around. And so the only option for me was to go through Amazon to self-publish. I hate Amazon. If I had any other option, I wouldn't have used it. But at the time, that was all that was available to me. If I had the Black Artist Fund, I could have created a website. I could have started a GoFundMe. I could have found a way to publish my book through a local person, and I could have done better in the community and given back. It's just, it goes full circle. You know, the money comes from the community and it goes back into it. That art that these Black artists are creating is going to either stay in Sacramento and create us revenue, or it's going to go global and create us revenue and prestige. And people are going to want to visit this Sacramento community, these artists who are amazing and emerging out of the city that everyone considers boring and mundane. So I think the Black Artist Fund is doing something revolutionary.
Absolutely.
It's shifting the way that this city's art scene is being looked at. It has people who hadn't looked at Black artists as an asset before now requesting that the artist is by Black people, by women of color, and requesting that it's in the forefront. It's on the front pages of the newspaper. It's inside the museums, and it's the exhibit of the month, of the year. It's those things that are amazing. It's portraits and walls and just streets of artwork by Black people. And that wasn't not happening before. There is this big gap in between the people of color in Sacramento and the white artists in Sacramento. This corporate view of it, and how you had to be museum ready to have your art featured and appreciated. And that's not the case anymore. And even the more corporate side of art is starting to realize that they need to invest in the local artists, whether they be a person of color or just a small local artist. They're realizing that they have this pot of gold here in Sacramento of people who just need to be utilized and cultivated into being the artists they want to be. And the Black Artist Fund started that.
Yeah. And just applied pressure. You know, I mean, that's the most beautiful thing that I'm seeing about it is, like, you know, when there's not a Black Artist Fund, then everybody can kind of pat themselves on the back for, like, oh, we were inclusive and we gave that one Black artist some money this grant round. Where, like, now it's like, nah, y'all are gonna start giving our Black artists some money, because if you don't, someone else is going to, and you just going to look bad because you haven't been, right? And to, like, have that coalition, yourself, Maya, Jessa, Faith, those are some women who I love dearly, who I know as nurturers, but also as people that I would not want coming for my head. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And I sit in the meetings sometimes and I think how lucky I am to be around these strong, powerful, independent, driven women, and all the knowledge I'm getting from them.
You know, they think the same thing about you, right?
I know, and it's so weird. I'm like, how? And it surprises me all the time. And then I get reminded that I do cool things sometimes, and I should give myself more credit. But I am always amazed sitting in the board meetings. I'm like, oh, let me go into this room with you guys. I can't do all the businessy stuff yet, but I definitely want to learn how to do it so that I can someday be who you guys are being for the community. I'm pulled in as a youth artist to uplift youth, and I do my job and I do it well, but I would love to be able, once I'm not considered youth anymore, to still impact the art community. I'm not going to be young forever. I have to start adapting. And in long term, I want to work in the art community. I don't see myself doing anything other than using art to uplift communities. I think it's the purest way to do it, and it's the most, in my opinion, constructive way of doing it. Once you tell people that they can do something they enjoy for a living and you get them invested in that, they're investing in themselves and they want to be better. And And so that's what I want to do with my life. um, of course, I want to write books and do poetry on stages, but I want to tell people that I grew up with, people like the people I grew up with, that they have a different choice. They don't have gang violence, and they don't have to repeat the generational trauma and cycles that they've been seeing. They can do different things. Growing up in Oak Park and Southside Stockton showed me a lot of the things that could have happened to me that I was lucky enough that my parents sheltered me from. And I got to the place I am today because of it. But at the same time, there are a lot of classmates of mine who were homeless inside of high school and who had dealt with sexual assault and drug abuse in the home and abuse in the home. And they didn't have money to get out of the situation. They didn't have anything to protect themselves when they come to school. And that's a whole nother conversation, but the educational system was not set up for them to succeed. It was just set up for them to be a number in the statistic. And that is one of the saddest things as well. And I feel like, hear me out, I'm going to keep saying it, if they had an artistic outlet that made them feel like they had a place to call home, they would have become a more better version of themselves. They would have had those resources and those people in that love for something. It gives all those emotions a place to go. And I think that is so important.
keep saying it, because there's a lot of folks who think that it's just, oh, you learn to doodle, you learn to throw some paint around, but you're never going to make money off of that. Capitalism drives us to be able to make money off of this creativity. But you're absolutely right that the mental health, I touched on it a little last week, and I don't want to dive too deep into it, but my first poem was a suicide note, so it was good enough that I was like, oh, I'm pretty good with these words. I might stick around a little bit, you know what I mean? So let's talk a little bit about your personal future and what you are currently working on right now. So you've got this book you're working on. What else? What can we expect dropping in 2021? We got a mixtape coming out, feature films. What are we doing?
In 2021, I will be by the end of 2021, probably November. I think I'm going to keep releasing things in November. As just a tribute to my first book. But it's going to be Fruits of Isolation, a complete collection of poems during the pandemic. It might be a chat book, but it won't be a book. That is in the works as well. If you guys are looking for a sneak peek, it's going to be called Mahogany Letters. It'll be about the experience of me being a Black queer woman inside of America during all of this craziness, and how my childhood shaped me and how the world is still shaping me. I mean, that book can be rewritten a whole bunch of times throughout my lifetime, but I do want to memorialize part of it and put it into a book. So that's something that's a little bit further out. But I do want to just visit something for a second.
Yeah.
And how capitalism is a big part of why people don't do art. And how people are like, oh, we can do art and make money off of it. And that's one reason that a lot of successful artists keep doing it. But capitalism is built on violence, and it's built on the violence towards minorities. And as a person of color or a queer person or any of those marginalized communities, when you're doing art, you also want to be working towards dismantling those violent systems that put you in the place to have to write that traumatic art or that dehumanizing art in the first place. So that is something that I have a whole bunch of problems with capitalism, but that is something that I always keep in mind when doing poetry and thinking about how, yes, I need to be able to live, but also how can I support the community with this art, and how is it bigger than me? How is it bigger than my household and my needs, and how is it serving the community and the people around me? So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, like you said, it's that balance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like for me, it's always like, I'm real quick to be like, what's the budget? I mean, that's always one of my first questions. I feel like artists of all kinds, y'all should just get used to having those awkward conversations. You know what I mean? Like, push folks, make sure that they are paying. I do believe especially poets should be getting paid. I come from a time where poetry didn't get paid at all. Like they acted like they were doing us a favor, putting us on the stage with 500 people to open their event. But y'all doing me a favor because now people have heard my poetry, right? Like, so I'm definitely big on that side, but also on like, you know, within ZFG, it's like, yo, we do X amount of community work. You know what I mean? Like when the organizations need it, when the homies need it, when the activists who are on the front lines need it, like got you all day. Now,
I remember the first time I met you, you were in a shirt that said "Pay Artists," and you were practicing for your poet laureate, your poet laureate poem, and I thought it was the best thing ever. It was hilarious. You were like, "I can do this half drunk right now. I can do it on Wednesday," and you did it. You did the damn thing.
Shout out, Speak Out Sacramento. Again, you mentioned it earlier. That's where I went it was like 2 days before the finals. The finals were on a Friday, and I went, and it was Cafe Colonial. Shout out to Gabby and Ben. I love those guys, and they always treat me right. And, you know, part of treating me right is they make my drinks really strong. So that night, it like snuck up on me, but I definitely was in that mind state of, yo, if I could do this right now with this buzz going on, then I can for sure nail this on Friday. That's so funny that's the first time that we like met but didn't meet.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're gonna wrap this up. We're getting out of here. We've gone a little over our time, but how could we not? I feel like we could do another hour and a half just on, you know, the ills of capitalism and the need for cultural equity in the arts.
Sure.
And we probably will. Sometime we'll have you back on the Sacramento Poetry Salon. But for now, for everyone who's been watching and tuning in, how do we keep up with what you're doing? What's the best way to follow you?
You can find me at sign.cloudy on Instagram, or on Facebook. You can find me at sign.cloudy. I am also working on a website. I received an honorarium for it. I'm staying true to my word and doing it. I've been saying I'm going to do a website for a long time, and I now have the funds to actually do it. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
It works. And is it okay if I farewell with a poem?
Oh, absolutely. We weren't going to leave without having you do one more.
Alrighty. So this poem gonna hurt. This poem gonna hurt. Like redlining to the education system, like the comfort zone to an artist, like the hood to gangsters. This poem gonna hurt like loyalty, loving liars. I've been scared of who's gonna hear me. Like if I shout revolution too loud, who gonna try to rip out my throat? See, I don't want to be too brown in front of the wrong crowd, so I write heartbreak and hurt. But I got a message that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt like stillborn babies and broken dreams. Like licking frozen spoons, like my lineage never really loved, just settled. Settling is what they did best, and I'm terrified of stepping on the neck of my dreams just to double what my parents didn't and dodge their disappointments. See, spitting this is going to hurt like eczema in the winter and 400 years of slavery. This poem going to dig deep like wells waiting water, and how the world is on fire at its core. I've been burning to beat this bondage to barriers. I want to speak sweet symphonies. 1, I'm falling in love with the fleeting world. 2, this place, this time ain't never gonna love me back the way I love it. 3, am I ever gonna change someone's life? 4, what does it mean when darkness and silence become your best friend? I want to hold him close to my heart. But last time I held him close to my heart, ended up testifying these testimonies of tenacious tales, and I can't keep sitting at the table waiting for the damaged door from to open. So this poem gonna hurt like breathing water and addiction. Like where I come from, if they not shooting up, they shooting you. And I'm sorry, my brothers keep taking away what's home to you, but we lost pieces of home too. Like swimming was never a pigmented thing, just the boat in the ocean floor. So this poem gonna hurt like stampedes in The Lion King, like smoke smothered lungs and no oxygen mask. Like I'm scared that if I turn on my TV, I'm going to see a headline about a brown boy that can't breathe because he was suffocating in a system where he was never free. Then this white girl got the nerve to bring up the Emancipation Proclamation. Girl, don't tell me about your version of history. This poem gonna hurt like a history lesson, where don't nobody look or sound like you, where your story ain't told. Like boys who love boys and girls who love girls wasn't beautiful, like an organ decides who we were going to be, and that's why this poem gonna hurt. Because this is where we tell our story. This is where we claim ourselves. No, that white man ain't discovered anything, just came up with the system. Y'all let them put crack in your backyard. That's the reason we had the Panthers guard in the hood. Ain't no gardens around here unless they bring up product. Home cooked meals take the back burner for some fake Prada. This poem gonna hurt like kids who had ghosts for parents and called a haunted house a home. Like kids who knew dead kids. Everybody got demons, but too cool to call it depression. Boy, what you looking at is cold out here. Keep making noise, you don't make it to Christmas this year. These poems gonna hurt like blades to wrists. Like cold cuts ain't a thing around here. Cover up, kid. Nobody cares about your label, even if it's carved all over your body. We got kids in cages. When they get out, gonna be working for minimum wages, and it's crazy. Only way to make it out the ghetto is becoming a pastime. Look at what I can do for you. Spit pretty words, throw a ball, run the field, sing a song, catch a beat. Let me put on a show for you. Am I worthy of your attention now? No falsettos or fantasies, no fictitious hope or surrealism. This is a manifesto. This poem gonna hurt like she gonna hurt, and he gonna hurt, and they gonna hurt, and we gonna hurt. This poem is powerful. This poem is resistance. This poem is true. So this poem gonna hurt like it's me. And it is. But we were beautiful all along. Thank you.
Hit him. Keep hitting. All right. So before we get out of here, while you have half of the city watching and listening, any advice for writers? Any message that you just want to give out to folks? What you think? Parting words.
Be loud. Just be loud. In all the spaces you take up, be loud about what you care about what you want to be, about who you are. Be loud. Don't let anyone silence you. Don't let people tell you who you should be or what you should conform to. If you have a voice, please use it. The world needs it.
You heard it here. Y'all go follow at sign.cloudy on the gram, on Facebook too. If you're old like me, you can follow Cloudy on Facebook, but Cloudy don't be on Facebook like that. Go follow on Instagram, because that's where the Young Life is at, on the gram. I mean, they're on TikTok, really, but like they still kind of hang out on the gram. They put up with us on the gram. So, y'all, it has been an absolute honor to sit down and introduce the city to one of our two amazing Sacramento Youth Poet Laureates and her work. So, y'all, make sure you go follow, go pick up that book on Amazon, y'all.
Or the Crocker. You can find it on the Crocker's website.
There you go. We would wait. Hold on. Just reverse. I never said Amazon. You know what I'm saying? Like, go buy it from the Crocker, and support them for supporting us. They're making this happen, as well as our partners for broadcasting the Young Laureate series. So go support the Crocker. Go buy that book. It's called Receipts of Ungiven Gifts, y'all. And for Cloudy, I'm Andru Defeye. We love y'all. Keep writing.
Absolutely.